Welcome to For the Record, an unfiltered view on current trends and timeless advice for surviving in the aesthetics industry. Whether you're an injector, practice owner, sales rep, or marketer, it's time to set the record straight. Each week, we cut through the chaos and showcase diverse perspectives and winning ideas from the best minds in the industry. I'm your host, Dr. Tiffany Hall, Chief Growth Officer at Aesthetic Record. Now, let's get started on this week's episode. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of For the Record. We're here with episode 9 in season 2, and things are going to take a really fun turn today. So I met our next guest really into the pandemic era. We were doing some online things, webinars, podcasts for our people every single day, and we had on our show Bryan Lavery, who is from My Face Lady in Houston, Texas, and he runs this incredible, I can't even really quantify this incredible business, this concierge medicine clinic with 40 plus providers. He's also injecting, he's staffing, recruiting, onboarding, retaining, teaching technology, but that's just one part of his life. He's also a trauma surgery nurse practitioner. He also does work in the ER. He spent some time on helicopters doing a lot of like air evac trauma work. He's really doing all the things. Plus, he's also helping to run a testosterone clinic. And by the way, he is fabulous 24/7, and his Instagram is a riot. So Bryan, I cannot tell you how happy I am to have you on our show today. Welcome to For the Record.
Thank you. That was quite the intro. But yeah, I've dabbled in a little bit of all of that. That's all true. That's all true.
People say that I work a lot, and then I talk to you, and I'm like, gosh, I'm lazy. I should get another job. Like, I'm not doing enough.
Yeah, I'm working to scale back. Like I said, this year is going to be the year of hopefully scaling back. We've got some great policies and procedures going this year to hopefully lighten up my load, but we'll see where it goes. That's always the plan, and we get this new task. We're like, let's build this new project, and well, there goes that.
I think it's like in your DNA, but it's interesting. I was at an event this weekend. We were just discussing this at Dolce Vita in Connecticut, and Leslie Tracy was there talking about if you have an exit plan, if your practice can't run without you, you're a lifestyle owner. You're not a practice owner. You're not a practice director. You're just here for the money and here for the Gucci bag. You have built a model that sustains and scales when you're doing all these other jobs. It's growing tremendously, and somehow you've managed to make it have a great culture, a great vibe, a great experience. And so we're going to unpack how you've done all that today, because I tell you guys, it's remarkable what they've built. So first of all, congratulations on a successful 5-year run with this just remarkable practice. So I want to jump in right now to who you are and what you do, and give us the lowdown on Bryan.
So I joined on, what My Face Lady is we are a concierge med spa based out of Houston, Texas. We currently operate in Houston, Dallas, Austin, San Antonio, Victoria, Wharton, Carson City, and Louisiana out of New Orleans. Those are the main hubs. We've also kind of branched a little bit more some of these outskirts territories that we kind of just group into the bigger cities. But we started 2016, 2017. My business partner, Ann Thompson, and Dr. Jordan Smith kind of came to me with an idea that they had maybe 3 or 6 months off the ground. And I said, yeah, I'd love to come on board. I think I can bring some value. And that was back in 2017. Now we are, as of this morning, 83 nurse practitioner PAs and RNs strong. We have about 5 supervising physicians, obviously an owner supervising medical director, and we're onboarding 12 additional NPs to PAs next week. So we look to cross 100 active injecting providers in the next 30 days. It's been a process.
Holy shit. We were just saying we're going to try not to cuss on this podcast, but that's a holy shit moment. 100 people who are all injecting and treating and charting and doing inventory and running a business and booking appointments. I don't even know how you would even start to think about that, Bryan. How big is your leadership staff?
So that has been an active expansion this year. Until maybe about 6 to 9 months ago, my business partner, Ann, and then Dr. Smith does a lot of the back-end work, the back-end financials, the back-end medical decisions. But as far as frontline, till about 9 months ago, was Ann and myself. At about 40 to 50 injectors, we were doing it. Thank the Lord, we have found some amazing injectors and amazing people that have actually worked up this year. So now we have, on top of the medical directors, admin staff, I've got payroll representative, I have an HR rep, we have an aesthetic record guru who is also a training assistant. We have 3, pushing 4 aesthetic coaches, we call them. So new hires go through a formal training session. They also get a direct supervisor, an NP that's paired up with them one-on-one through this onboarding of aesthetics journey for some of our newer injectors. And then we have a full-time inventory coordinator, and her sole job is tracking every last unit and every last vial in our company, where it is, who has it, and when it expires. She's responsible for transferring product all around Texas and Louisiana. And then Jennifer has actually taken on about a year and a half ago. She is our formal clinical educator. So we now offer continuing education, building more platforms as far as outreach, ongoing education for our staff. So at the end, I think our full admin is probably around like 7 or 8, give or take. But the moment we blink, we found a need for somebody else. A week and a half ago, we took on a salon liaison who's an injector that fully does salon outreach for our salon contracts. So the instant I think I know everybody have, I was like, oh wait, there's more.
So, okay, let's take a quick back shuffle of 3 steps. How are you doing all of that? Because, I mean, to your point, until a few months ago, you were, the sole clinical director running all of this thing by yourself. How are you also managing a full-time job plus, I mean, you're managing really a full-time job plus half of another full-time job and My Face Lady. So give us, just for those who are thinking about surviving their normal day-to-day, like how do you keep all this balanced, if you do at all?
I don't. Straight up, I don't. It's gotten to the point probably in the last 18 months where we had a conversation with my business partners that we all still work full time. Jordan's remains a full-time ER physician. Anne has fortunately been able to scale back from the ER from herself, but we've gotten to the point where it was kind of either do or die. We either need to shit or get off the pot. Like we're at a point where I'm not able to dedicate enough time to the direction and the growth and first world problems, the success the company's having, but I don't have. I went to private school for NP. Like I'm sitting on way too much student loan debt. I can't switch it all up. So what we've kind of in turn done is built these additional admin staff positions that I used to be doing for free. I'm now paying someone to do, but I can better allot my time to kind of focus on the parts of the business that I can contribute to a little bit better, which is our continued growth and moving forward.
Okay, you just had our entire podcast, season 1 and 2, wrapped up into one answer because I mean, you know this about me. You've watched enough of my stuff. We've talked enough. I preach process all the time because I just feel like until you have SOPs, like SOPs is such a fluffy word, like what does it even mean? But until you have like things that can operate the same way all the time without you there doing it, you can't grow. Like it's just not going to happen for you. So I see business owners who are like, hiring one person is going to kill us. I'm like thinking, Bryan's hiring like 15 a week. Like you got to figure this out. You got to figure out a process to onboard, to hire, to recruit, to interview. Like it's a full-time job by itself, much less everything else you're doing. So I think you've had necessity. You've had no choice but to do all these processes. So you should be the guy we're all learning from about how to get this all done.
Well, the thing is, we learned it all from trial and error. Like we were getting to the point where we were onboarding. Let's try onboarding one person at a time. Well, that was a waste of my damn time because we just onboarded Michelle and we did all this time and resources, and Michelle got to the end and says, meh, I don't want to do this anymore. So then we kind of revamped, we built policies, procedures, and unfortunately, my dumbass didn't figure this out, unfortunately, until like year 3, where it's like, hold on, like, and only because of Jordan, our business partner, was like, listen, guys, we got to rope this in. Let's just get some lockdown processes for onboarding. We did a all Hail Mary, everyone on board on what we want this to look like, and it has been our saving grace. And it's still being modified to this day.
Well, it's like the go slow to go fast idea, right? Like take the step back, rip off the Band-Aid, figure it out, take a pause for a second, and then you like catapult forward because you get it all figured out. But you mentioned another part of this when you said, I'm going to pay someone to do the things I used to do for free so I can do more things that produce more revenue or have more impact. Give us when that decision, like what are some of the things that you're like, I'm not doing it, forget it, somebody else can do it, like social media, web design, all these things. Because I do all the things here. I'm sure at one point you were doing all the things. What have you given away?
Well, I was never doing everything on my own. I will say that. I've got 2 of the most amazing business partners out there that will drop everything in a hat. And we kind of all, we're siblings at this point, and it's always 2 against 1, and that's how the company rolls. So when I was getting to the point where like I need help, to be completely honest, I was the main first point of contact for 83 NPs, PAs, RNs for everything aesthetic record related. So that means I overcharge somebody, because keep in mind, with 83 injectors, I've got 83 registers that are live. And it's not just one front end person's like, oh, I can help you, Michelle. Let me just reverse the charge. No. So it got to the point where actually during the November promos that we're running, and we had a kind of mix with the packages and we tried to work it out, I was ready to sell. I was done. I couldn't resolve 83 issues at once with different package issues and people onboarding, people selling. And I went to my business partners and said, I can't do it. Like, I'm failing our staff, I'm failing our company, I'm failing our business, I'm failing my home life. My other half's like, you're miserable, like I'm biting off people's heads. And I had to take a step back and be like, I need help. I need help. It was a tough decision to make, but I'm far happier now.
Yeah.
Much, much happier in the regards of anything of thinking I need to control every little aspect of the forward facing of the company. To let some of that go was a learning curve, but has only helped my work-life balance 10 times better, and I'm only 15 times better of a clinician and of a leader to my group now that I've offloaded some of this stuff. Was letting go of it easy? No. But I've got some amazing staff that have completely exceeded our expectations and the help that they've kind of given, and they've really taken the driver's seat. And for that, I'm forever grateful. I'm very fortunate for that.
Well, I think people who are listening right now that may not really understand the whole concierge vibe, because as I think about what you're saying, there is no practice manager at these locations. There is no front desk person. There is no person to do this, the documentation and check in, check out. Like, it is the provider. I'm thinking in all cases, right, that he or she is doing really soup to nuts everything. And the central office, if you will, is managing the administrative back end of their day to day. So how does it work? I mean, I don't know if you've worked in a traditional med spa, because I feel like you've been doing this forever, but, compare it to a traditional med spa for those who don't really understand concierge. Like, how does it differ, and what are the expectations in that kind of a model versus being, at like Joe's Botox bar?
Yeah, so I actually have never worked brick and mortar. I have tried a Monday through Friday job one time. I lasted 90 days. 90, and I couldn't do it. I felt like it was too monotonous. I couldn't do it. So I can't directly speak to the everyday experience of the brick and mortar. But what I can tell you is some of the struggles and things that I know that we've had to do differently is medical legal compliance. It's medical legal in the state of Texas when it comes to aesthetics is about as clear as mud on its own, and then put a concierge model involved. So that's a little bit different. We are having to comb through these laws at get-go to make sure that we are compliant. And then we find these laws, and then we actually push it to the next level to stay extra compliant because we are concierge and we are kind of out on our own. We can't pull up prior court cases, defend a situation, and what have you. We're one on our own. So that's a different struggle for us. Another different thing could be concierge at Bob's Botox Shack. You may have two injectors. They're sharing the same bottle of Botox, Jeuveau, Dysport, what have you. A lot easier to turn that over. I've got an injector on the north side of Houston with an open bottle. I've got 37 injectors in the city of Houston with 35 open bottles of Botox. How do I utilize loss prevention, mitigating transportation, and keeping this product cold on the go? It's a very dynamic stressor that I think a lot of the brick and mortars may not have to experience so well. It's one thing when you've got, like I said, one place, you've got your bottle that's open and you work through that bottle, it's gone, you're good. I think right now I probably have 80 to 90 open bottles of neurotoxin that will expire on a very short period of time. So there's a struggle that I think a lot of brick and mortars don't have to worry about. And then those are the two biggest ones. But how else we differ from concierge is finally kind of one of the things we always kind of hang up with our injectors is safety. Sorry, it's 2022. I have some amazing injectors that are the most well put together, poised, professional men and women that are aesthetically pleasing and do such a great job of representing themselves so professionally. And this is a sketchy world. And I'm sending these people into people's homes. That's a stressor I think that brick and mortars don't have to worry about. We have a firm policy that our injectors can drive up to the house or the establishment, they could have a bad feeling because they don't like the color of the home. They're trying to turn around and leave. No questions asked. You call me, you call my business partner Ann, we will take care of the rest. We'll find another location to treat this injector. If it's a male patient and the female feels uncomfortable, I will personally go see the injector or see the patient. So there's multifaceted kind of other issues that even can get a little bit scary from a concierge standpoint that I don't think brick and mortar have to stress about so bad.
And I think safety too, from the perspective of, having Colorado days in your car, or, however they're traveling, having a doctor or, an emergency plan in your market. Cause, going from Houston North to Houston South is like, I don't know, 3 hours in a busy traffic day. Like, I think you probably have to have a widespread net of ophthalmologists and, chambers and all these things that are very widespread.
So we have direct access through most of the major emergency rooms in the city of Houston, additionally into Dallas and the major cities that we serve, just from our own personal relationships, having worked in that environment. But that's the other thing that differs from brick and mortar is they've got a couple of hyaluronidase on them for everyone in the office. That's great. I've got 54 of my 88 or wherever we're at injectors all doing filler. No one is allowed in our company to inject filler without what we call our crash cart, which includes that hyaluronidase. Like kind of like more of our crash cart, like we're actually upgrading that policy right now, but like from the nitrobidate and everything on the ongoing. So I don't just have one set of it. I have 54 sets of this. And then I need a contingency plan for that vascular occlusion that does happen. Who responds, when, and how? So we have a code occlusion full-on protocol that gets all available resources within a 30-minute process and all hands on deck. So it's been a learning curve. Things have been really great to us, and we've had no negative outcomes thus far. I'm actively knocking on wood. But yeah, it's scary. It can be scary, and it took a lot of attention to these details. Otherwise, we could be in a lot of unfortunate situations for both ourselves as a company and for the patient, and that's not what we're looking for.
Well, but, I think you have an advantage. All of you coming from ER, all three of you who are kind of the namesake or the owners, if you will, you coming from trauma surgery, like these things don't scare you, right? Like they scare you healthily, I'm sure, but it's an issue that occurs. We have to have a plan. We have a protocol. We have, a code that we run in place, and we deal with it and move on. I think people get so scared because I hear this a lot. Obviously, you guys are a huge account for Aesthetic Records, so I talk about you with people all the time because your business fascinates me. And they'll say, "Oh, that's just so unsafe. How could they do that out in someone's home?" I'm like, well, the same crash cart you have in your practice, they have with them. They're trained just like you're training. Four walls does not make you safe. I think people have this misguided direction that four walls that are the same breed safety. Well, we've been doing wound care in people's homes for like 1,000 years. We've been doing a hospice. I mean, I don't see that part to me does not make a difference. It's more of, is the injector prepared, period. No matter where they are, do they have the right tools in the tool chest to be, an emergent issue, take control, take charge, all that. So I think you guys probably have very buttoned up, very incredibly well-written protocols because you've had no choice.
Yeah,
So,
and we've seen, I mean, we are emergency providers by nature. We've been in this game in the ER, all of us. I think collectively between Dr. Smith, Ann, and myself, I think we're well over like 40 years of emergency room experience. Any advice, because yes, it's all going to be scary. It's all super dangerous. This is, I don't know, maybe it's just my jaded kind of self when I say this, and I hope I don't shoot myself in the foot, but when you're going into these situations and let's say you do have a vascular occlusion, like the first, or wherever your situation may be, the first thing I always stop and I tell my injectors, this isn't your emergency, it's the patient's emergency right now. If you're going to start panicking and making it your emergency, well, now we got two problems, and I only need one. So if you're going to call me shit in a brick, okay, you can shit a brick, but I'm going to need to make sure there's just one emergency here and not two. Once we can kind of regroup, because we've seen the worst of it, like just from our full-time jobs, like, and kind of we have these policies, don't get ahead of yourself. We have the data, we have the support for you, relax. And we have had very close calls and concerns, just statistically, with as many providers as we have. You can be as safe and thorough as you want, but you run the risk. But we've been very fortunate to kind of keep these disaster cases at bay with some of these policies that we do have. But at the end of the day, it's not 100%. Nothing's 100%. It's just about being prepared and staying calm.
yeah, it's not safe anywhere. Like that's just the nature of the beast in medicine, period. I mean, we were discussing this on last week's podcast. There was a Brazilian doctor that had a vascular occlusion, like instant blindness on stage a few, I don't know, weeks ago or something. Well trained, has been through all the protocols, knows all the anatomy, knows the science, and as you say, shit happens. And that's a horrible thing to say, but it's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And to your point, I love the idea. It's not two emergencies, it's one. Like, focus on what you can fix. You going crazy is not going to make it any better. I feel like that's great life advice in general. Your fire is not my fire. Let me help you put yours out. Let me not catch myself on fire at the same time. Yeah, great life advice.
And one of the things that's different about us is, and it's kind of like even with the direction that My Face Lady is going, is we're building a full-on aesthetics institute that hopefully will be live by the end of the year. I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself with that, but we already offer continuing education to all of our staff with about every 30, 60 to 90 days based on where they live. And we send our clinical team out. They're doing live injections. They're doing live demonstrations. They're getting hands-on experience to continue up and be as safe as they possibly can. So we're always trying to push the envelope for safety and education. So we are absolutely as prepared as we can be. That's one of the reasons I kind of like that we are such a large group is I don't know too many places that like we have a group chat in WhatsApp with every single person. And anytime they're like, listen, I'm insecure, take a picture of this. Can someone help me? This is the situation. My staff has 80 other people on board there to support them and say like, no, this looks like A, B, and C. Have you tried EDF? And that's one of the things I like is we are truly a big, huge MFL family. And I hate saying that your company's a family because I think it ends up being too cliche. But like at the end of the day, we're backing each other up. Yes, the aesthetic world, you can reach out for help on Facebook and Instagram, but at the end of the day, Michelle in the WhatsApp group that works for the same company you wants your brand to look good because she looks good. So we're all on the same page. So it's been an evolving kind of fun little process for us to build this team up and keeping safety number one at the end of the day.
Well, so to that point, okay, I have two questions to again go back one step to inventory. What you mentioned about having 50 bottles of Jeuveau open and 16 filler that are going to expire next week. So we talk a lot here that inventory is the biggest cost for any practice. You can think it's HR, but in most cases it's inventory. Let's just call it what it is because it is half of all the profit. How do you guys manage that? I think about shrinkage, right? I think about people stealing things. Now, obviously, I'm sure you're hiring with a very vigilant process, but even in a brick and mortar, like I was at a clinic last week and they're saying, if we go from clinic A to clinic B, we lose 4 filler. Just by default, we're going to lose filler because we misplace it in someone's trunk, it's underneath their seat, like we just can't find it anywhere. You have that times 83. How do they like physically manage all day, filler, reporting back, reconciling it? Like, give us just some ideas of how to keep that straight.
Her name is Stephanie Logan. She is my full-time inventory coordinator that has by far been the backbone to inventory stability within my company. At the end of the day, traceability. We have our own margin of error for evaporation and shrinkage that we consider acceptable. We run audits and reports, and Stephanie will look and see things will happen, like 15 units here, 5 units there, 10 units. But if we're looking at 3 months in a row and Michelle has 35 units 3 months in a row, girl, where the hell are those units? Like, thankfully, we haven't had too much issue in that regard. And our staff they take great pride in their work and have a lot of accountability. Our onboarding and vetting process is pretty extensive. There's multiple rounds of interviews and like live. You actually have to come to us and we put you through our clinical onboarding, and we're actually kind of gauging your own success as far as your confidence and your abilities to inject. And it's a multifaceted thing that you've got to kind of fit with the group too. So we've gotten very lucky. Now I can't say that we hasn't been unfortunate situations that have happened with filler and with product loss, but it's a part of the game, unfortunately. I have plastic surgeon friends that have been through horror stories of their APC or their RN or whatever stealing thousands and thousands of dollars worth of their product. All product for us goes through inventory. We own that product. The injector does not. And if the injector, unfortunately, is not able to keep track of that product, there is liability that can be associated with it. We haven't had to utilize that too much either. Again, integrity-wise, we've been very fortunate. But it is and has been an ongoing kind of thorn in our side. Traceability helps, but it's not 100% at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think about my waitress days. Take it way back to the bar, back to the club in 2000, 4, 3, whatever. You bought your bank. Very similar. Like I would say, okay, Brian, I'm taking out X amount of things from my bank. At the end of the night, you had to pay it all back, and whatever's left over was yours. But like you knew that they were going to check it. If you were a dollar short, that was your ass. If you were 50 cents short, I think knowing that it has to be checked and reconciled and it's being monitored and measured is a deterrent for someone who's like, oh, maybe I will, maybe I won't. It's just a couple units here. Like, nope, I'm going to get caught. It's not worth it. Like, I think just checking it, I implore practices we do on training calls every day. Like, you have to check your inventory. You have to reconcile inventory. Because by the time you check it in 6 months, it's all walked out of the front door and you haven't seen any of it. What are you going to do? Go back and like start blaming people? You can't do that.
Oh, and we've run into like unfortunate horror stories. Like we have a lot of staff in New Orleans that just had that recent storm the past year. They all evacuated. Like, Bryan, I'm so sorry. I was storming with my family, rushing out the door. I left 5 bottles of Botox on the counter. Like, I'm not gonna come after her from that. She's trying to get her family to safety, but it's just like this is part of the game. Unfortunately, it's just what am I gonna do with it? I'm not gonna go after somebody. Like, we have little issues that show up, and when we first started this company and we were transporting product around Houston by way of like UPS, and UPS lost $6,000 worth of product on an overnight package. Couldn't find it. Fast forward 18 months, the damn product shows back up. Out of spite, just for the hell of it, I'm not gonna lie, my business partner Ann and I were like, you know what? Let's see if this stuff works. Sure as shit, the product worked. We only injected ourselves. We did a self-injection. We didn't sell this to the public, but that's a whole nother just conversation about expiring product and when it should expire and when it doesn't. 18 months sitting through UPS, and then all of a sudden shows back up at the door. It worked. Sure as shit, it worked.
Well, honey, I got Jeuveau in the fridge. It's a year old, and I won't inject it, but I will have it injected in a heartbeat. It is botulinum toxin. Like it's like a cockroach. It never dies. Like I know the FDA can't say that, and this is a disclaimer, guys. We are not discounting the FDA approval. But yes, there are instances where you could certainly on your own self with your own product try these things out at home.
Yeah, and that's all I'm saying. I'm saying that's one of the kind of things that we are large enough and we've had enough errors show up that we have kind of been able to perform our own off the record kind of internal evaluations on some of these hardcore set things as far as the potency. I was no problem. No problem.
No problem. Well, okay.
Just putting it up.
So to that point about hiring good people, and I was thinking about too the Houston flood a few years ago. I worked for Galderma then. We had to replaced Disport all across Houston because you guys had like massive floods. You lost power for like I don't know forever. It was terrible.
Hurricane. Yeah, we were just a wee baby company at that point. It maybe 4 or 5 injectors, so we were okay.
Yeah, but prime example, if you got people everywhere, like tornadoes hit, storms hit, people lose electricity, and they've got things in their fridge, like to your point, stuff happens. But okay, second question, back to the same inventory idea, kind of moving on from that. But okay, so now let's say we have 100 injectors out there running around with the MFL flag, playing in the sand. And this could be for any practice, not just yours. But when do you feel like in your gut, as the person who's sort of responsible for them, that they're good to go on their own? I think that's a question people have all the time. Is like, when do I get to leave the room with her? Like she's good by herself. I don't have to keep holding her hand, making sure she's injecting lips correctly. Like, is there a certain litmus test for that? A certain training requirement? When do you let them go?
So for us, we have once you're hired in with us, you have a full day of clinical training, and you're not allowed to you're only allowed to start with neurotoxin. We start you with neurotoxin, period. We have our own designated numbers of, once you've injected so many neurotoxin patients, will we even consider cross-training you on filler? You're welcome to attend the trainings, but until we know that confidence level is there, we're okay. So from a neurotoxin standpoint, they're going through the full course of didactic with us. The afternoon is spent doing live injections underneath the direct supervision of our clinical team. So we're watching them implement those policies and procedures on normally about 2 to 3 patients. Then the concierge aspects comes in. In the meantime, we've paired them up with a senior injector or an aesthetics coach. This tends to be one of our more experienced, kind of like top performing injectors that takes them in under their wing for the following 90 days. Before they're given any product or anything within My Face Lady, we actually send that lead out with them to their first little event, and every single patient has to be chaperoned, supervised directly by the aesthetics coach. We ask that those be at least a minimum of 3 to 4 patients for neurotoxin alone before we'll even consider letting them go as far as on their own. My margin of safety for neurotoxin is tends to be a little bit, while it is considered a dangerous drug, the short life acting, have you 90 days it's over. I'm not so concerned about the filler. We run a little bit tighter ship. It's a very kind of aggressive training process. You need to have demonstrated and been able to rule out some of the big issues. The biggest thing is just knowing when to ask for help. If we can train anybody at the end of the day, fake it till you make it, just know when to ask for help. That was my old ER nurse supervising when I was a baby nurse. They're normally okay. But we have a formal write-up at the end of their probationary period with their aesthetic coach that evaluates their confidence, their placement, their conversational and professionalism, their reconstitution techniques, and their aesthetic record charting abilities. And they have to be able to dedicate all 5 and hit them on the head before we're safe, because not only are they patient safety concerns, but our company and our brand that we work very hard for. It's a very competitive market, and I can't have subpar, sub-professional in any of those categories in one of the largest markets for aesthetics in the country. Like, I can't afford it.
Yeah, for you, it'd be a death sentence, right? Because they're everywhere. Like they're in every major area of all of Houston. And, you guys are so prolific that one person could hurt the whole brand. I totally understand that. But I ask this question to everyone who comes on the show that I remember to do. Would you rather hire a person who's brand new to aesthetics that you're teaching them from day one, or experienced?
Based on my experience, I've had more success from the unexperienced injector. I can tell you additionally, I've had more success with the registered nurse over the nurse practitioner.
Ooh, Bryan, them's fighting words. No, I'm
From
kidding.
a performance-based evaluation, I think the laws in Texas, nurses can still inject in the state of Texas. There are strict laws that enable them to do so. But statistically, I think we have 5 or 6 registered nurses with us, out of a group of maybe, I think, 60 in the state of Texas or 70. Normally the top 10 every single month, majority of them will be nurses.
That's interesting. I would love to do a study on why that is. Like, what are the factors that you think contribute to that? And guys, this is disclaimer: Bryan is an NP, so he's not hating on his own kind.
No. I've done the job. I did it, and I still do the job. But what I think being a concierge model, we do, on an overall analysis, compensate per patient a bit better than I think the brick and mortar does. If you were to see as many patients by concierge with us than you would do in brick and mortar, I think you would blow that salary out of the water. But there's other things that are involved, transportation, things like that. So with that being aside, but when we broke it down, and I kind of put this data together at the end of the year and brought it to my business partners, and they were kind of both in shock. But statistically, month after month after month, the registered nurses are injecting more and are having average transactions higher than the nurse practitioners. And we sat down, we're like, well, how do we have these 5, 6 nurses, and they're constantly in the top 10? And I think there's the biggest thing is, I think the financial compensation for a nurse is a bit more lucrative. I mean, pre-pandemic, $85 an hour for a nursing contract, but I think there's a little bit more of a financial incentive there. But it also it does instill a little bit more of a ownership and a sense of autonomy with their work. We complete telemedicine for all of our nurses. They can't execute anything without an order. But there is a sense of ownership there that I think they're not offered unless maybe they're airlifting, where they can kind of really build things up and build with the provider. But at the end of the day, do I 100% know the answer? I don't. I just have the data that supports it.
Yeah, I'd be interested too, like, ASN versus BSN. Like, you could peel this thing back into so many layers, but I think the part of experience versus non-experience in and of itself is a novel thing, because people I would say this: people who actually own practices and who are hiring every day always have the same answer that you had. I want them to be raw or fresh, and I'm going to give them my method of doing it, because untraining bad habits is really, really hard. I think folks who want to build a practice say, oh, I'm going to hire all these great injectors who have a book of business already. We're going to grow so fast. And they end up hating that, going into it because it's like, wait a minute, it's no longer mine. Now it's really theirs because it's their way and their thing. And so it's a mixed bag. I think once you're in it, your decision changes versus how you see it looking from the outside in. It just seems like such a great idea in the beginning. But yeah,
There's so many people that come to me like, I want to get into aesthetics, but everything wants experience. No one will give me a shot. I really want to do this. Should I take this $9,000 class so I can have this piece of paper that means nothing? Like, what do you think I should do? I'm like, I don't care. Like, at the end of the day, the right people that have joined our company, or some of them, I'll say right. I've been very happy with everyone. Don't get me wrong. But the inexperienced injector with minimal experience, but just a super drive and passion to learn aesthetics, that really wants to get into the market, that's personable and has a Facebook account, that's been the recipe for success with us. And we invest a lot of time, money, and resources into some of these newer injectors with no experience. And I think that they do see and appreciate that we're giving them the shot. And they've stayed very loyal to us. Our girls are not, and guys are not they're only in non-competes with us for concierge services. So a lot of my injectors have actually gained the experience and now have gone and worked brick and mortar in addition to working with us. Because we're okay with them working in a brick and mortar. That's fine. They've gained their experience and now they're marketable in these brick and mortars. And so they're seeing these on the side. Now, do I hate to lose them in that regard? Yes. I think I've lost one injector to a full-time brick and mortar over the last 5 years because her brick and mortar would not permit her to stay with us. And it was an unfortunate loss, but she knows who she is and she knows she's always welcome to come back the day that it changes. But yeah, at the end of the day, I'll take somebody with no experience. Anytime.
Well, back to your RN NP thing. So, I'm sure my partner, he has several med spas and does lots of trainings, and we talk about the same thing all the time. And it's interesting because you can tell who's aggressive from day one. And I don't know if he doesn't really have a lot of RNs. Most states that, he's in, you have to be an NP or PA, but we talk about a lot that people who start out, who from day one in training, like, oh, she's aggressive. She's going to go get it. She's fearless. And I often think the more education that you get, the more that you're exposed to things like trauma and disasters, and you get not squeamish, that's not the right word, you get more cautious, right? The more you know, the more cautious you get. So I often wonder if people who are coming from like an RN, new to aesthetics kind of mindset, they're just like guns out, let's go do it. Like, I want to your point, if I could make it, let's go try it out. Where maybe you get more reserved as you go along and you're like, you know what, let me get really good at this and then I'll get aggressive. So I wonder if it's some of that's like a behavioral mindset based on how much you've been exposed to in your professional career. I don't know the answer, guys. I'm just sitting here thinking about, I'm so intrigued now, like, what could that be? I got to know the answer.
No, I totally agree. And one of the things I've kind of found with like acquisition of like new hires and things like that, I will take the ER, not just because I'm biased, but the ER nurse. Close behind is the ICU nurse. Their procedural skills, and they're not afraid to kind of get their hands in there and get involved. Those have been my very great successful. Registered, and then when I switched to the NPs, same. I need somebody with kind of procedural based NP experience. That's not even about the aesthetic experience. It's like, where did your nursing background? And then finally, PAs, you've got to be a surgical PA. I need a surgical or an emergency room PA. Otherwise, history has shown it can be a little bit more difficult to onboard. But like you said, at the end of the day, if they come to me aggressive, motivated, I will give anybody a shot. Because if they're successful, I'm successful, our team's successful. So I'm never going to block anybody out just because, well, in the past, no. If you're showing the motivation, I will. But that's just some of the things we've kind of learned over the 5 years of onboarding over 100 and some odd injectors.
Yeah, I want to like do a study on just your practice, like who you've hired, how long they've stayed, retention, stuff. Like, I want to take all of your data and just dig in and like write a whole case study about. Because I feel like to validate onboarding procedures, you need to have one practice who does it repeatedly over the course of time to really understand what works and what doesn't work, right? Because you're not changing your practice all the time. You're changing the people and the onboard, you can normalize certain variables and get a really good idea of what works. So you would be a phenomenal case study. I'm coming to you, Bryan. I want to figure this out.
Do you know what this would do to my business partner, Jordan, if we could get, like, we want that data. Like, we have the information. It's just, how do you organize it to figure out, like, what is the ideal candidate? Like, who's going to be the most, like, we have that information. We're sitting on it. It's just about collecting it and building it and finding patterns. And it's more of a societal type study, right? And it's not going to be end all be all, but it's very interesting to see where people come from that make the most successful aesthetic injectors and what patterns and traits they have similar. I'll give you all the data. If you just get back to me the answer, it's yours.
What's like finding a lookalike audience for Facebook? You know, and you're trying to find the perfect patient to model your Facebook campaign off of. You don't really know if they are or not, but you're basing it on what are they spending, how frequently are they coming in, what are they buying, and you just have to kind of give it your best gut and go and pray that it works out. But I think this is kind of the same. Like I am completely intrigued by this, and I might be coming to Houston to steal all your data and work up some case studies for you. But
Oh, one email away. It's yours.
I digress. But I was on your website this morning looking at Patient Pop, I think is who does your website. And
Growth 99.
oh, guys, Cameron Hempill, I am sorry. I just rolled over my grave.
You guys, we were at Aesthetic Next this most recent year, was our first year going. We got the amazing opportunity to be stationed right next to Growth 99. Shot the shit with Cameron and their crew for about 2 or 3 days. The end of the weekend, I said, we need to get back. We need to sit down and talk. We did a formal digress. Probably one of the most proud projects I've taken on this past year was our partnership with Growth 99. I'm thoroughly impressed with what our website does. We are getting much better connectivity as far as where these people are coming from. And even at the end of the day, the majority of my patients, I don't market. Organic growth is the best. But even just to catch some of these trends in website activity, like, yeah, I digress. Growth 99 is who we use. We are relatively new within the last 6 to 9 months or so, and it's been a godsend.
Well, I think that's what you just said about finding the trends. Like Cameron's team is like, oh, the color blue is really hot right now. Let me get a blog out about the color blue and injectables and see what that does for you. And then bam, your SEO just goes off the charts. People are looking at your site. Like they just know, they know that like you know trauma surgery and like you know aesthetics. Like that's what they do all day. So I think it's, I'm seeing you guys explode. Even Bryan and I work on a project together with Evolus, with Javo, and I'm seeing your social media really taking off as well, and your leads are getting better and more. You're one of our most successful accounts with this Evolus project, and you weren't really doing a lot of social media prior to that. I mean, you guys were kind of like, in the background. You were there, but you weren't doing aggressive social media. Has that changed, or are you still kind of letting your website and word of mouth take it for you?
Word of mouth. I can give like kind of horror stories when we first started out. When you kind of get into the business, someone's like, oh, marketing, you got to do marketing. You need to spend all this money on marketing. Girl, we done spent, $25,000. One patient off a $25,000 project. What I learned and what we kind of learned, and even the marketing people that we were with, is we were getting the traffic to the sites, but we had nothing to back it up. We had like 3 reviews. We had very minimal kind of online experience after that. So they were coming to us and then they were leaving and they were falling out. So we ditched the marketing campaign. We did a full-on onboarding stretch on reviews. Like, if you're happy, you know who we are, and building from there. That has been the biggest transition point. So anybody I think that is, at least from our standpoint, and what I can speak to, save your thousands and thousands and thousands. Our experience has been invest a little bit in putting time to get some of those loyal customers to just give you a nice review. Support your small local business, because that's who we are at the end of the day. Even at 80 injectors, we're not, I've got 4 injectors here, I've got 4 up over here. Like, we're not grossly saturated in one territory. So at the end of the day, we are a mom and pa. We're just a bigger one. But having people support your mom and pa, your small neighborhood business, has been the biggest turnaround. And so we still don't do any marketing. I have an awesome social media rep that we are very closely connected with. We're supplying her data. We do a lot of contests with injectors about, hey, top sales this month. We're about to announce it today in like an hour from our most recent campaign last month. They're getting a photo shoot to be featured in all of this summer's digital assets. So it's about like kind of building camaraderie and competition, putting people's faces Like, oh, I know my injector. We did the, I'm going on a tangent here, but this has been a thorn in my side forever. But like, when we did the Evolus billboard, I think we got a handful of patients from the billboard. It was from a larger purchase that we had, and so it was kind of complimentary with it. But there was a topic of discussion there that that's my injector. I had people taking pictures of, oh my God, my girl Lauren, like she does my photo, like building the brand organically in that regard by people who they know and next of kin and that type of thing. But I kind of got off on a tangent, but that's a huge thing that we've kind of concentrated on this past year and that we've learned about.
Well, I think it's great because I had this discussion with Evelyn and we were going into this project about, these guys don't do a lot of marketing because they don't have to. But I think about the billboard to that exact idea. People are like, ugh, billboards, they don't work. But I think what you just mentioned about someone saw it and it reinforced their decision to come to you like, oh, that's my injector. I think there's an affinity play there that's not recruiting new people in. You may get no one new from that billboard, but you're 55 who already come in, who see their injector in that billboard, like, oh, I go there. They're famous. My girl's famous. Like, I think there's some like warm, fuzzy feeling about that reinforces your idea. But, as I think about your local market piece of it, I have people who are scale, like you are, big scale, and they're like, I don't do community events. I do everything through SEO. It's all through marketing. I don't need to be in the community. I think you guys do a lot more community outreach. So, what are your girls and guys like in their day to day? What's the expectation for them to like go make, I say make friends with other businesses or, get the name out there of what they're doing all day?
Well, we also contract with a lot of salon accounts. There's a lot of salons in the area that they want to be able to compete with some of these other med spas and places that are coming up, but they're all estheticians and or beauticians and what have you. And so where my girls get their hair, they walk in and say, hey, listen, I'm also doing Botox now. I'm able to host an event here if you'd like. Let's build what you're able to already offer. And I'll also kind of be here to help build my branding, and we'll kind of co-brand like that. We've had really great success with that over the last couple of years. And I will tell you, I was the biggest anti-salon account person when we got started. Our business partners pushed for it. I was wrong. That's okay. But that's kind of where it starts. They start in their organic circles. We don't do, I'm not talking down to like SEOs and everyone that does that, because there is a place for it and people get a lot of success for it. I've been far more appreciative of the slow organic growth. Quality comes with it. I don't have to deal with as many rogue reviews from like someone who walked in the door, you know what I mean, that isn't connected to understand who we are and that these are my girls' side hustles and this is something they're passionate about. We're not just pumping through patients to make it like a mill. This isn't like a, you know what I mean? We're not like a pump and Botox patient every 15 minutes. No, we're custom, we're concierge. We kind of invest a lot of time and resources into you. We want this to work for you. And so we've been able to kind of keep that higher bar with both our clientele and my staff.
Well, I think there's a difference in a lead that's like pre-qualified coming in versus just like a rando off the street who book with you. Because I think when your friend refers you in, you feel an onus, like be respectful and professional and show up for the appointment, and actually get the procedure done. And, I find, because we do online booking, obviously, you guys, that. But I have accounts all the time who, the cancellation policy, I'm like, you have to put that thing on there because these randos who go to your Instagram link tree and click on your booking link and sign up and never show up are going to crush your business because they've taken an appointment from somebody who was going to pay for it. That didn't, that would have shown up. So I feel like this idea that everything becomes very sanitized and very SEO, cyberspace, it hurts the quality of the leads in many cases because there is no connection to the practice. Like no, I don't know what that word is, but they don't feel a responsibility to come in because their friend sent them in. They're like, I don't want to piss her off. I'm going to show up. There's something to that.
Yeah, there's definitely some ownership in the booking and themselves. And yeah, as we've grown, we've gotten more like of the cold calls, which have been great. Some of them turn out very successful, but we have also fully put in place cold call clients. All my staff will put them through the booking link for a cancellation policy, period. And that's been helpful. That's been very helpful. But at the end of the day, like we've been very fortunate. The organic growth has been slow. I'm sure if we maybe didn't rely so heavily on organic growth now and maybe we're trying to go full-fledged marketing standpoint, we maybe have much better success. But I don't want to fix what's not broken.
I mean, how much faster could you grow, Bryan? 100 people in 5 years? You're insane to go any faster. You would literally lose your mind, I think.
Oh, well on my way. Well on my way. But I can't speak enough to the partnership that I have with my crew has been awesome, and the admin team over the last 9 months to a year that has stepped up. it's been awesome. I can't imagine where it'd be if we didn't have them. The rest of the hair would be gone.
Yeah, Brian just got an amazing hair transplant a few months ago, and he is well on his way to having a full Fabio head of hair very soon.
I'm gonna look just like you.
Yeah, honey, you can have. I'm going to get a weft. I want one of those weft things to have. I heard about those this weekend. You can tape it in your hair, get it sewn in. I am missing out, but again, we digress. But I do have another thing to ask you. Yeah, I could just literally I could talk to you all day long. Every vendor I talk to loves you. Like every vendor in any part of my world is like, oh my gosh, you know Brian. Like they all adore you, and so I know that the vendors are coming at you guys, thinking that you're a gold mine because obviously you are with all these providers. How do you make the decisions of who you work with? Like, what is your litmus test for vendor relationships? How involved do you get? Because I think a lot of the new practice owners, for sure, they have no idea how to leverage that. And those who are growing are like, give me all the free things, not realizing that there's red tape and that there's strings attached to everything that you do here. So give us your best advice.
Best advice on like relationships and who we've partnered with. It took 3 days with Growth 99 sitting next to them and 2 days at the bar after the events, to be honest. And I was like, I like these guys. Like, I can trust them. They're clearly genuinely interested in our success. But it's a hard one because I love the 3 drug reps that we utilize right now. In the past, some of the drug reps aren't always interested in your best interest. They're interested in their best interest. And I don't have a problem telling them no. Sometimes the bigger deal isn't always what's in the best interest of the company right now. And I've made that mistake in the past. But vetting for who we partner with, we honestly don't partner with very many. Growth 99 is running our website, and then our social media is ran by a close family friend of a friend who's also directly relationship. Other than that, we kind of have stayed out of a lot of the big name aesthetics company and you guys, to be honest. And we got on board with you guys when you guys were like, hey, we're going to launch our point of sale today. And I'm like, great, sounds good. Let's give it a whirl. So to be honest, we've kind of pulled back from a lot of the big name aesthetic things. And I'm okay with that. I kind of like not being involved. I'm sure we could probably do better maybe if we did partner a little bit more, but at the end of the day, to answer your question, we really don't. We kind of keep to ourselves, and we're a different model. We can't really relate to a lot of some of these brick and mortar stressors and things that they're doing. And so that doesn't fit into the box for us. Even like with the legal team, like when we sat down with our legal team that we pay a lot of money to just to have under all the time. Another point, but we're not the box like everybody else. So they come to us with this and like, well, actually, we need to digress this more. So it's been a learning curve. And I kind of just voyaged out on our own for a lot of it.
Well,
and then harassing conversations to your staff for help.
Our staff, we were a little baby company when you guys came on board. You've survived the thick of it, but we've had a lot of great feature requests that came from you that are actually being implemented or already have because you've spoken up and said, hey, I can't operate at scale without this thing. And we've been, we went to CEO of a company and said, hey, listen, buddy, we have an account that needs this. They love you, they love us, but we're not working together very well here. So we've got to figure this out. So
this is going to be, it's already started to be everything. Like it's
going to get even better. But, I ask you that because we have accounts that have lots of locations, and even personally experiencing this where the rep goes to the account or to the clinics and negotiates side deals and side things. And then the person who's like running it all kind of gets cut out. It's like, wait a minute, we earned those samples. Like we're the ones who paid the bill, not Brittany in Albuquerque. We paid the bill. So I think that there is, as you get bigger and bigger and bigger, that becomes even the contract for for your not account managers, your providers to say, hey, samples that come to you, like, no, we're the corporate office, come to us. I think it's a hard thing to manage for a lot of clinics, but I'm guessing that your staff, you probably have, don't give away any trade secrets here, but I'm sure you have some pretty buttoned up things to keep all that on the up and up for your staff.
My staff does not communicate with drug reps. They are not permitted to. Some of our drug reps are really great in a crisis situation that can kind of help offload, but my injectors do not. Who talks to the drug reps is the 3 business partners my clinical educator, and then my inventory representative. Those are the only people that communicate with drug reps and the only people that receive product in and out of our company. There's no reason for the injectors to do so.
I think you got to do it. So those of you who are hearing this hating me for it, I think you have to get to that place as you get bigger for sure.
There's
Otherwise,
places that like the inject. Whoa, I didn't even know that's a thing. Like,
it's a for sure thing. It's a for sure thing. So when I was a drug rep back in the old days of 2015, the providers would get all the samples. Like they would just cut the owner out of the whole deal, and he or she's getting samples, injecting on the side, making all the money off the samples, and then it puts the rep is in a bad place. Like, well, Jane told me that she was authorized to get it. You have to get the signature and all these things, and it becomes like, I mean, I've seen clinics break up, like literally break up, hatred, death, and destruction over samples more than one time. I've seen lawsuits occur. Like it's a big bad hairy deal. Like just write it in the contract. You can't do it. Be done with it. It's not worth it.
yeah, no. There's no. Who's ordering that product should be the one associated with any type of promotional vials, and then let's say you are getting those promotional vials to be utilized for education. Awesome. Bring in your staff for that event and those patients that you want to kind of connect with, and they can come in for the educational opportunity for that discounted product rate. But I don't see any reason at all why your injectors need to be in. Whose company is it? Sorry, that was rude. I shouldn't say that. But at the end, no.
It's true. But I think about education days. You mentioned you guys do clinical education. Like someone has to pay for all the samples, and if it's a staff education day where they're injecting each other, like that stuff costs money. The syringes aren't free because it's staff. Like government doesn't say, oh, Brian, that one's free because it's for staff. No, it's like those samples are to be used for all those kinds of activities. We call it DEET on the pharma side for, these like particular things you have to use samples for, but that stuff's not free. And it's not really netting down. Like I think those days of it netting down your costs and all that, those are kind of done because we're so in tune with ongoing training and VIP customers trying things out for the first time. A lot of ways to use samples.
One of the things that I did find out though, for people that are like kind of circling with like, hey, we're hiring, like, do you take a new injector, do an experienced injector? One of the things that I found is that obviously your profit margins for different products is going to be different, right? You've got better profit margins maybe with this filler versus that one. And so maybe you want to move more of this filler than the other one or what have you. What I have found, especially with those new clinicians that are very green to the territory, at those trainings, put those products in their hands. People know and will use what they're experienced with, what they've seen, and what they've touched. If you want those new staff members to use those products that are a little bit higher profit margins, hold those trainings with those products. There's certain products I don't want my injectors ever touching in training, especially my newbies. They can look at it from across the room, and I'm very happy for them to see it. I don't need them to have it in their hands.
I call that the breast implant phenomenon because we see it in breast implants, the residency all the time. Whatever breast implants you were trained on, you will use forever. Forget an ACL, forget a breast implant deal, whatever. You're like, nope, I know how to use Allergan, I'm using it. It's the same idea with injectables. I think it's really no different. It's whatever you learn on and you feel confident using, you'll keep using.
Yes, so there's a lot of benefit to be had with taking maybe a newer injector in under the wing and showing them one of the ways that you do inject and showing the products you recommend that they inject and starting them there. The additional time and resources you may invest in that new injector, you may make back up with the additional profit margins.
Okay with that.
Just one of the points.
I didn't mean to cut you off. Carry on. Say more.
No, that's like literally it's gone very well in that regard. And the products that we do carry, like a lot of them are comparing apples to apples, right? Like there's multiple ways to skin a cat. Like, yeah, maybe the Dysport works better on Michelle and for Bill, the Botox works better. And you don't know till you try. But at the end of the day, putting a product in my injector's hands that are new, that I want them to use first, has been beneficial. We kind of did a trial run with it out of the gate where we were doing clinical education and only utilizing a certain product. And our product movement went 6-1 from one brand to the other in the course of 6 months. And that's just because we hosted that in trainings and that's what they were going, and that's what everyone pulled for first.
I think that is the magic number, if you will, Schoolhouse Rock here, the magic number for all things at clinics. Like you walk into a clinic and you see the shelf is full of a certain product. I'm like, how come we're not moving that? Well, I don't know. The girls don't like it. I'm like, well, have you talked about it? Have you trained them on it? Have they had clinical, experience with it? Do you have any before and afters? No. Well, it doesn't just move itself. Like, gosh, wouldn't it be great if it did? But that's not the way reality works. And so I think a lot of people forget that part, that you have to push it in front of them in some way, whether it's training, talking about it, promote it, something to get them to have it top of mind and to feel comfortable using it. So yeah, it's not osmosis, people. Not
No,
osmosis.
no. And my business partners and I kind of go back and forth, and they want everyone. I mean, one of my business partners wants everyone to touch every single filler that's out there. My response is, if you can't figure out how to work a different plastic syringe, like the plunger goes the same way on all of them, but that's just me. Um, so we've had kind of some tit for tat over that, and we've loosened the reins a little bit. But at the end of the day, people use what they're used to and what's in their hands.
Well, we had a big nerd session last week on the podcast about gel science and rheology, so I won't bore you with that. But I am curious, thinking about the scale of your business, let's say I'll just use Contour as an example because I know it came out not long ago. How long does it take you to decide to adopt a product in and then get everyone trained on it to actually start using it? Because I'm sure it's not a quick process for you with that many people to train and cycle through.
Contour, for example, I pulled it. And I pulled it because it was a lot to train to get everybody up to date with it. I don't feel like it varied that grossly. This is my own personal experience from some of the filler products that I already had on the line, and it just wasn't worth the additional time for us. We have our set maybe 6 fillers that we have in stock at all times. I can have the injectors door within an hour, not a problem. Some of the additional products, though, I need a 24-hour turnaround. And to be honest, when, let's say, filler a patient's requesting, and filler A is not on my direct formulary, I will offer the one I utilize the most and be like, hey, have you tried this? I can get it to you right now. Have you pitched this? And then we'll kind of go down that route. And if we have to, we'll obtain it the next day. But at the end of the day, 5 or 6 is where we're at, because to onboard a whole additional product is too much manpower. It's too much manpower. We just introduced this past year Versa. We hadn't ever carried Versa before. That was a learning curve. And then you also have to take into consideration, if I'm going to start using more Versa, then I'm going to start using less of this other filler. And if I'm using less of this filler, well then, what about my tiered status? Well, I'm not going to lose my tier status. Well, now I'm going to... It's not fun. It's not a fun little game to play. If I could have it my way, we'd be one brand. We'd carry one brand, a filler, and I'd be able to accomplish everything I could with it. My business partners would hate me. But I've never lost a patient. There's a filler that there's a whole filler line I don't carry at all. I don't inject it. I've injected it one time. I just don't care to do it. If I had it my way, I would only carry it forever, because I've never lost a client because I don't have this specific filler. Like, listen, I can do this and probably do a better job with it. I've got more experience with it, and I'm happier with it. Do you trust me or not? Do people lose patients over that?
Yeah, they don't. In their mind, they do. I think they convince themselves of it. I have so many friends like, oh, I have to carry everything. I'm an artist. I'm like, I don't know. I mean, jail's kind of jail. Like, I know there are differences. Don't get me wrong. I do a lot of rheology work, but G prime, molecular weight. There's a couple of things that matter. Beyond that, it's all preference. But the Versa thing you mentioned. So I love Versa. I have it in my lips. It's a great product, and I think often about the fact that it's so much less per syringe that even if you lose your tiered status, you still benefit more. And so you have to start doing math, right? Like mental gymnastics of, is this better? Is this worse? Does the tier really matter? Does the tier not matter? And it's like these tiers. I think the frictionless idea. Obviously we mentioned Evelyn earlier, like this frictionless thing about just earn your free vials and you do your rewards. Like I think the simpler we can get this to become as an industry, the less pressure for the business owner, because you're in like golden handcuffs in a sense. And I think people start to resent your company. We see it happening with other companies in the industry. They hate them because they have to buy it, because if you don't, you can't survive. I think there's just so much drama around pricing and products that people forget. People like you, and other big accounts, lots of injectors, it takes a long time to onboard a product. So I appreciate your great promo on, in this case, on Contour. I love the idea you're giving away free stuff here, but I'm still 6 months away from even thinking about bringing it into the clinic, because I've got to train 100 people on it. Like, I think you lose out. You get punished for your size in many cases because you can't work as fast as, Betty Botox, her one injector, in her moonlighting business. You just can't do it. It's not possible.
It's totally true. And the thing is, when I think about people like with their clinics that maybe a little small, you got like a handful of injectors or like a smaller clinic, like or a newer growing clinic. We started off, I think, maybe just offering. I think when we started, we did two Juvederms, we did Lift, Restylane, and Define. Those were the five that we basically carried. Because there's also the capital that involves. Like you got to have a bunch. Like that's not cheap. And so even as a smaller company, when we're only turning a couple $1,000s a month, like that's a you shouldn't be sitting on so much capital that you're struggling in the back. Like we broke it down to five. We can accomplish all the tasks we need to do an effective, safe manager with these five, and then we help build the practice. And then we started onboarding additional products by patient request, and you kind of catch the trends and where people want, and you can influence people to maybe utilize one of those five. Where even putting out little social media things like oh, try the Restylane challenge, like as a Restylane kits right for you, try like you can entice people. Like I just hate to see people saturate themselves where you're a smaller, newer clinic, you've got a couple of injectors, you got one injector that's all experienced with Allergan, so you've got the whole line of Allergan for her, and then he's a new guy, but he heard about Restylane, so now you got to carry all this Restylane product. Like, no, like break it down. You can accomplish the task. There's enough filler out there. Get one of those workhorse fillers, like like the General Restylane. At the end of the day, she's gonna pull through for you. You know what I mean? Even the Versa these days, like you need her, she'll step up to the plate for you. And just I hate to see people drown themselves in acquiring product because that was a mistake we made in the beginning too. Like before we decided to break it all down. Oh, and if I had $1 for every time that those drug reps got a hold of me and told me, oh, if you order 500 vials, the promotion is neat. Now I've got six. What am I going to do with it?
You get 7 coupons if you buy 4,000.
Yeah, like don't get caught in the mix of that. From my own experience, like we have broken it down to we order what we use in a quarter. I'll order what I use in every 90 days. I'd like to do it every month if I could, but we didn't need to buy for what you think you're going to use in 9 months.
Oh yeah. Now with shipping, like we just had this discussion last week, with shipping being overnight, basically for all manufacturers, you can do just-in-time inventory and be totally fine. You don't need to sit heavy on inventory because you can just get it tomorrow. I mean, order it by 7 o'clock tonight, it's here tomorrow. But you would think that COVID taught us that, right? You would think that the fact that practices had to shut down midweek on a random Wednesday with shelves full of product, they'd be like, huh, I won't make that mistake ever again. But here we are. You know, our memories are very short, Brian. We've all been doing it again. I look at inventory every day. It's on everyone's shelf again, like we didn't learn our lesson. So
That's a learning curve, and it's one that I'm still learning. We're all still learning. We don't have if you have the secret to a concierge model, what to do with inventory 100%, please let us know because we're paving this path alone, and we wish had some insight.
yeah, and let me know because if Brian can't figure it out, then I don't know who can. So send me a note too, guys. CC me on that email.
Like I've got it figured out. Like this is what we got to do, but I'm still kind of at loss because there's. I think one of the years with Jeuveau, we were the largest purchaser of Jeuveau in the country. I think at one point, for a period. Like, did we need to be? Looking back, no, we probably would have been fine without it. Like we didn't need to, but I mean, we moved it, but at what expense?
But then there's pressure to move it. Is it going to expire? What's the shelf life? First, are you going to use LIFO or FIFO or just in time? Or, yeah, supply chain management's a whole career. It's a whole industry, a specialty. It's a lot to do, and you're doing it with everything else going on.
I wish I could have had a consultant for it because there were years that I'm sure other aesthetics companies have maybe run into this before where in Cordis, I have not taken a distribution or a payroll because we felt we needed to take advantage of promotions that the reps were running. And so I wasn't paid for unbeknownst hours of work. And that's kind of the tough business decisions. Like, how do other people make those decisions? Like, am I the only one that's done that before? Tell me I'm not the only person that's done that before.
I don't think you are. I think it happens. I think when those terms roll around on day 89, they get the Amex out to try to get 30 more days because they bought it without a pull-through plan because the rep had a shiny thing to sell them. I mean, I was one, guys. I get it. I did the same thing. I try really hard not to, but, credit, it sneaks up on you, and you gotta pull it through. What happens to what you're saying is if you don't pull it through, you walk in the room and you see all those boxes, you're like, oh, hell, I hope they don't come back forever because they have really screwed me. When I took over a territory, I had to clean up a person's mess, and that's what he left in his wake was like everyone had product sitting everywhere, and they hated me because they were like, he sold us this pile of goods and then never helped us do anything with it. So I think it rubs practices the wrong way. They get, resentful. It's a whole thing. There's no reason to sell in more than a practice can sell out. There's just not. It's not healthy.
Yeah, and we've learned that, and we've been very fortunate, like financially, to always be ahead. We haven't sat on product debt because of the slow organic growth. At the end of the day, buying what you need, not what you think you'll need.
Yeah, good decisions.
That's helped.
Well, we're like at an hour, which is like shocking because again, I could talk to you forever and a day. But you mentioned one little nugget I want to hit on before we go about My Face Lady Academy. Can you tell us any deets on this?
Yeah, so it's in its infancy. We are hopefully by the end of the year this will be live, but we currently function in Texas and Louisiana. I have a business partner's dream that we will be in all 50 states. She pushes a new state every meeting that we have. But the plan is we will be implementing some of our proprietary kind of training modules, our aesthetic training techniques, and an opportunity for people that don't work for the company. That people can kind of come in. We're looking at hosting these type of events, very similar to those other aesthetic training institutes that are out there. But one of the things that so far has set us apart that our staff's been very happy with is they're live injecting at our trainings. They are live models. You are hands-on, have the opportunity to can perform some of the things you're most uncomfortable with under the direct supervision. So with that, we kind of look at continuing on with our mentorship programs and mitigating any other issues and kind of problems that kind of go along the way. We'll still kind of in its infancy, but it's basically launching a full-scale aesthetics institute within My Face Lady, not only for just our staff, but and beyond. So,
Well, you better let me know when this happens because I'm going to go sign up and I'm taking all the classes.
yeah, it'll be fun. I mean, it's going to be another movable piece, but we've got some admin staff that thrive on providing education. We love learning there's more than one way to skin a cat. Like right now, we host entry-level neurotoxin classes for our staff up to advanced sessions and then basic filler to advanced filler. So we have like master filler classes for the people that are doing the more advanced procedures because I want them to feel safe and I want them to be confident. And so it'd be nice for us to kind of help bridge this a little bit bigger and also provide additional outreach for more people to join our company. We hire like 4 to 6 times a year normally. And we are always kind of looking for the right people. So this is another way to kind of reach the right injector because it can be hard to find the right injector. Like people think they want to get into this and they get there and well, I'm sure other people have had that problem. You onboard everybody and it's like, oh no, this wasn't for me, sorry. So we'll see.
I think that when you get ready to do CMEs, you call me because I'm like a CME ninja. So if you want to get some credits for this, let me know.
That's actually if my staff watches this before I get a chance to talk to them, but one of our 2022 goals is a formal CME utilization for our staff. That's currently on the back end right now. So they will be, we'll get some accreditation. That is the goal.
Well, I'm here for you. You just call me, honey. Anytime you want, I can get it done for you in a couple weeks. I promise.
Oh, yeah. Because your schedule is just wide open. I know. You got nothing going on.
We'll talk at 4 a.m, after we've been working all night. But
I sleep 8 to 5. I'm unavailable. 8 p to 5 a. I'll sleep.
Today I slept from 5 a to 6:30 a. But we won't talk about that. It's a hard world over here. But for the record, Bryan, you have been a joy as always. And my God, we've learned a lot. Like my mind is totally blown on all the things you've discussed. Like this might be the most impactful business owner podcast we've ever had in the history of For the Record ever.
Yeah, learn from all my mistakes. Go ahead.
Well, I think when you do it times 100 under a microscope, because I mean, in a concierge, you are under a microscope, as we've talked about, legally, compliantly. Like you got to know your stuff, or you're never going to survive. So, testament to you, and you said that to Dr. Smith, to Ann for what you guys have built. Like, it's mind-boggling. So, huge congratulations.
And thank you, and we're also open to, I mean, I've talked to other like aesthetic record clients in the past that are like, hey, listen, I'm considering aesthetic record. Like, what are your thoughts? Like, I'm to this day, like, have them shoot me an email. I'll tell them the good. I'll tell them what I don't like. I know one of the issues I used to have is y'all are updating you're updating this program too much. I've got to retrain 88 people that the save button that used to be on the left is now on the right. now I get now we get updates whenever you guys are updating before it happens. Like some of these things have just made my life so much easier. But yeah, I love to consult with people about things that they can kind of help build with. And then the third project we hope to build is a formal consulting service. That's the long-term dream, that we can kind of help. We've made these errors. We've done it. We've paid consultants. We've made the errors. Learn from what I have done. But anytime anybody just wants to shoot me an email, I'll be like, hey, this is my thoughts. This is my situation. Off the record, for the record, I'm happy to kind of just consult. No problem.
Well, tell us how to find you. Tell us about your website, Instagrams, all the things.
Yeah, well, we're just myfacelady.com, and then it's Bryan Lavery. It's BryanLav as in Victor, ERY at myfacelady.com. My Instagram, I do not hold an aesthetic Instagram. I only hold a personal one. And it is private.
Yes, it's off limits, people. You can't have any of his fun.
Yeah, I don't run in aesthetics. I'm trying to scale back on how frequent I inject. I don't have the time. And it's gotten to the point where some of my staff is succeeding my skills. These girls are going to trainings every 30 to 60 days. They're up to date on everything. I'm doing a lot of back end work, and I'm injecting with the way I taught 5 years ago. I learned 5 years ago. I'm not going to lie. And I think I can provide them a better service by passing these clients on to my staff. So I don't have aesthetics Instagrams. I don't do it.
I think it's okay. But by the way, Bryan works out all the time. In the middle of all this, he also has fitness as a forefront. He's working out. He's losing weight. He's, getting hair done. I mean,
You make me sound far more successful at things than I actually am. So
I'm just tired thinking about all of it. I'm just really tired just thinking about your life, to be honest. But hopefully we'll see you again in September. I'm hoping this year that you're going to speak for us on stage and tell us all about your amazing business acumen, what you're doing. So here's your invitation. We'll talk about that later. But I want you in September. And keep going, doing what you're doing, because, like I said, you guys are so impressive. But again, thanks for coming on and for sharing your story today.
Well, thank you. And yeah, we would love to come back to Aesthetic next. I will tell you that it was a very motivational weekend for us and kind of helped catapult us through a little tough stressor time. So anybody just to plug Aesthetic next, I'm not investing in it. I don't make any shit money off Aesthetic next. But I will tell you, we had dealt some stressors in the company. We were going through some growth stressors, things like that. I went to Aesthetic next. So extremely motivating, kind of helped us kind of catapult us to be get past this brick wall that we were at and where to go next. So we'd be honored to come back. It was a pleasure. So we hope to see you guys there.
Well, we got a place waiting on you, baby. You come on down.
All right, cool.
Well, for everybody else, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next week for episode 10.
See ya.
Bye, guys. Thanks for listening to another episode of For the Record. This podcast is not intended to provide legal or medical advice. It's for entertainment, education, and information purposes only. For more information on this week's guest or to get started with Aesthetic Record, email us at info@aestheticrecord.com. Be sure to tune in next week for more fresh perspectives on disrupting the status quo and surviving in the aesthetics industry.